The former fire chief, who was killed at a Pennsylvania rally for Donald Trump, spent his final moments diving down in front of his family, protecting them from the gunfire that rang out Saturday during an assassination attempt against the former president. Corey Comperatore quick decision to use his body as a shield against the bullets flying toward his wife and daughter rang true to the close friends and neighbors who loved and respected the proud 50-year-old Trump supporter, noting that the Butler County resident was a man of conviction. That is part of a story from the Dallas Morning News from noon on this July 14th, 2024. And it's horrific and it's tragic and it's heartbreaking. And as a former member of the public safety community in fire and EMS and a planning section chief on an incident management team who has planned similar events with the same agencies involved in the assassination attempt that occurred yesterday, I wanted to take this opportunity to share with folks that are listening what goes on behind the scenes without giving away the secret sauce, and more importantly, how can we prevent more headlines and lost lives in the future? Because hope is not a plan. Welcome to the Hope is Not a Plan podcast, where we address tough questions head on, face our problems, and highlight our hopes by providing actionable planning steps to improve ourselves, mind, body, and spirit. Now, let's get logged in and get locked on to this episode of the Hope is Not a Plan podcast. Thanks for sticking with me and for going to the hopeisnotaplan.org website, where I have resources, including the one I'm going to talk about, that helps public safety teams plan at all levels, federal, state, and local. And as I shared in the opening, I was part of events that actually included former President Trump and other candidates throughout the years as they traveled to different cities. And the team I was on, an all hazard incident management team, is charged like a program manager. We bring everyone together and plan and enter perimeter, out of perimeter, whatever. You've probably heard that term in the news over the past 48 hours ad nauseum. And the goal is to prevent loss of life, injury, all those things that nobody wants. Getting there, they'll share, is not always super. As I've shared on this show and in talking with other folks, if you read any after-action report, you will find when a bad incident happens, people didn't plan together like they were supposed to. This afternoon, I was listening to the Secret Service, and I was proud to hear Milwaukee police chief talk about how Chief Jeffrey Norman talk about how they're planning together, not just police, it's fire and everyone, and that's what you want to hear. But then I could read into it a bit of a divide when reporters were asking questions of the Secret Service or other agents. Well, we have this plan, we've known about it. And that's a pitfall that people fall into. We fall into it in the project management world and public safety that, hey, we've done this before, we've planned for 18 months, so the plan now should be good to go. Instead of saying, you know what, we are going to take a look at it based on what just happened, and we are going to make adjustments if we need to, and if not, we won't. But not just saying, nope, we're good, you shouldn't do that. You should always be ready to change your plan. So I'll just kick this back off with that. And I put a LinkedIn post out there, and I'm going to share some ground rules before I walk you through the process that every public safety agency, every law enforcement agency, fire, EMS, public works, public health, everyone should be using to plan for events to close gaps in communication, in physical territory coverage, in so many different ways. And I will make a prediction that when we see this lessons learned, these after action that hopefully is objective and impartial, that people didn't plan together, they didn't cover the areas, they weren't on the same plan. And that's another thing I heard from the Secret Service person. We have an operations plan. We have an SOP or whatever. And great friends of mine from law enforcement at different levels will tell you they fought the good fight for us to pull the law enforcement folks in, because an ops plan is not the same as it's an action plan. And that's what we use for these things. So here's the ground rules. And every event that I helped plan that went well, that maybe went bad, these are the ground rules that should exist and hopefully do for the conventions coming up for all parties and for the other visits that are going to keep happening from candidates, right, that are running for president. Safety above all, period. Above rank, above patch, above jurisdiction, the safety of our people, the safety of the public, and then, of course, in the case like we just saw, the safety of a high-level political figure. That has to trump everything. And it should trump this next two things. It should trump everyone's ego. No egos, no silos. people that start to get a lot of brass on their collar sometimes get a lot of ego. And there's folks that are kind of the enlisted, not the officer folks, that also have egos. But this is where we have had to fight the hardest from what would be common sense things, right? Where I would have to tell a leader, hey, if you don't plan with us, my medics can't get to your person that just got hit with brick. Like, do you understand that? And so that tends to break down silos. So safety above everything, no egos, no silos. Don't have your plan and then we'll have our plan and then we'll hope it all works out, because it never does. Or you are the luckiest people on earth. There should be one planning process. One, we all work together in a cycle, and I'm going to touch on those key meetings. There's one planning team, right? You see a theme? We're all together in the same process. We're all together in the same team. And there's one incident action plan. That plan's going to have different parts that people can focus on. Like, I'll focus on the fire or EMS part from when I was an EMS captain. Cool, but we all have a say. We all know what's happening when. We all know who's going where. And we all brief together. We don't segregate the information. Now, there's sometimes law enforcement sensitive, and gosh, for political candidates and folks that have Secret Service and all that, there's law enforcement sensitive info everywhere. And you don't get into that. Not everyone gets into it, but the overarching plan, everyone should know as far as personnel and where they're at and who's covering where and all that kind of stuff. And then the ultimate role is hope is not a plan. We can't hope that our radios work together, and we've never tested it until that day. We can't hope an area is covered and we didn't go over there. We can't, right, hope that our people are trained in how to respond to something. Have we ever practiced someone responding, getting shot at with simunition? Right? Think about these things in the real world. So safety above all, no egos, no silos, one process, one planning team, one plan, and always that hope is not a plan. So what are these critical steps that public safety personnel need to do in close partnership with federal agencies that come in, like the Secret Service does all over the place, or it could be Health and Human Services? It doesn't matter. Like, go back to COVID. This should have happened better with that too. And some places did it well and some places didn't. And when it doesn't go well, we see things, tragedies on TV. So it's called the planning P because it's literally shaped like a P. And you go from the bottom of the P up. And so let's take, I don't know, a rally as an example. And I've been part of these planning for them. You get a notice that this thing's going to happen. And I heard the news today, they said it was like 18 months in planning, which is no joke. They take a long time and there's a lot of people. Public safety alone, let alone the public that's going to be there. So you know about it. You let everybody know that needs to be involved. You start pulling people together to start assessing, okay, where's it going to be? What's the footprint of this? Do we know this area? And start thinking about what's a briefing. Typically, we have this many people that come to this. How many staff does each agency have? Can we put up what kind of different teams? And I'm not going to get into all the teams that are involved in these things. But you start to look at your resources that you have. You can build that foundational 5, right? What's the leader's intent for this? Well, the leader's intent is safety for all of us, safety for the public, safety for the principal, right? That we work together. All those ground rules I talked about, that's leader's intent. Then we make objectives. The objective is we are going to move everybody from this, throughout this event effectively with high service, etc. And you can make those smart objectives, things like that. And then we're going to figure out the org chart. Right. And that's where we're going to get into this now. So we've made these objectives. We have a command and general staff meeting. So you're going to have an incident commander, a safety officer, a public information officer, a liaison officer that's helping all these agencies work together, which, spoiler alert, they don't always work together because they don't come out of their silos and they don't get rid of their egos. And then we're going to have a planning section, which is like your project management or program management office for the team. The operations section, these are the doers that get it done. These are in this case, the sniper overwatch teams, the folks that are assigned to the president, the fire MS people that are on standby, everybody, right? These are the folks that are going to do the thing. Then you have logistics. These get the people doing the thing, all the stuff and the buildings and the equipment and the transportation. That's your logistics section. Then you have finance and admin, of course. They cut the checks. They help us stay within policy, those kind of things. So you have a team. So when you hear command and general staff, it's those key players. And then we're going to get ready for a tactics meeting. So we have our objectives on overarching SMART objectives. What are we going to do? And now the tactics is, here's who's going to cover different areas. Here's how many of those resources are going to cover the different areas. Here's where they're going to report, the equipment they need to bring or that we're going to give them. And each one of these elements of that plan, like a group, which is a functional thing. So say a bunch of cops and I'm keeping it high level, or a division that's like north and south or east and west, or all of those. All of that info is in there. What radio channels can we talk to each other on? If this bad thing happens, how are we going to switch so we can talk to it on a different channel? And all of this is worked out well ahead of time and should be talked through and practiced and signed off on. So that's the tactics meeting. That's the most important meeting in my eyes, because this is the how we're going to do this thing. Or realize, oh crap, we don't have enough people, or they're not trained enough. We need to include training in this 18 months before we get to this big event. Right? Because sometimes you got to build training into that. We've done that before big events because not everybody's ready for every single thing. So now we've got tactics. And now what we're going to do is the operations section person has said, here's how we're going to do this. And it's people that know how to do these things, right? How to protect people and how to respond to fires or provide medical care or give shots or something like that. Now we're going to go sell this to the incident commanders, right? Usually there's a unified command. So like the head of the Secret Service, the chief of police, the fire chief, they're going to be in charge of this. Sometimes you can't get around rank, and it makes sense. So now we're going to go sell them this plan. Here's all the police we want. Here's the fire and EMS we want. Here's the buildings we're going to be in. Here's how we're breaking out where we go, what we're going to cover, every detail. And then they get to grill us, right? The incident commander, what about this? How about that? Or they say, you know what? We approve the plan, and literally say it and then sign off on it. And then that's where the job as the planning section chief or people in the planning section, we start making copies, or now we give codes or we send links or send a PDF or whatever the, electronic version is. So everyone has a copy of the plan, not just their piece, but all of it. Because you never know, contingency, if you got to go to somebody else's channel and you don't know it, it's all in there. And now, morning of each day, we're going to have an operational period briefing. So my hope in all these events we see is that everyone that's going to be part of these, from the folks we saw on the news yesterday and long guns and helmets that came out after it happened, to the folks that are inspecting the hot dog stand to make sure the food is safe, are getting briefed. Hey, everybody, welcome from the incident commanders. Thank you, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to go through each component of the plan and address, right? Police group, you're going to do blah, blah, blah. Fire and EMS group, you're going to do this, this, and that. Everybody, we're going to break out. This group, go over here. Then you talk about it some more. You make sure everyone's ready. They've got all their equipment. You can track them. And that's one thing I did. One of the best experiences I had is I tracked, and I had a team of like 28 folks in the resource unit. And our whole job is track our people. If something happens, know where they are so we can get to them. So there should be no surprise on where our people are. So if they call out, hey, I'm John Doe, I know where John Doe's assigned. And nowadays, everybody's got a GPS tracker on their watch. Well, we could use those kind of things to know exactly where they are and see it. So throughout this planning cycle, we've known about the event. We've gotten the leaders together. We've gotten the team members together that actually know how to plan for this stuff and that are going to advise us, not just dust off a previous plan or not just make assumptions, which we'll see how the lessons learned go. But assumptions are always made in some of these planning processes. Then we're going to actually figure it out. We're going to dive in and figure out how much stuff we need and how many people and where they're going to go. Then we're going to sell this to the bosses, and the bosses are going to sign off on it. And then we're going to tell everybody else what we're doing and make sure that everybody gets that briefing, either directly from us in one big hall, or, hey, group leaders, you all are team leaders or group supervisors, you all break out and talk to your groups and tell them what they're going to do and get into the details. So there should be zero surprises. And along this path too, your contingency planning. What if this happens? And that was a great example we saw when former President Trump, when he was hit and he went down, got swarmed, right? Their contingency plans from the Secret Service were on point, right? And you see other people helping in those things. So from that perspective, what we saw was, hey, and this is, their whole gig. If a president's hit, we swarm on them, we shield them with our bodies, which is amazingly brave, and then we get them out of there. So what are the other contingency plans, though? Like a mass casualty incident in the stands. Does Fire and EMS have that? Do we know that if it happens here, we're going to bring the ambulances in over on the other side of the field, then we're going to go here, and all those kind of things have to get worked out. I'll also share that none of this planning should be open to anyone except the people there, right? Because pretty sensitive stuff, but it should be happening, no doubt. And if you're going to do this kind of thing for multiple days, you kind of go back through the cycle. Does this plan still make sense? Nope, we need more of this. Or actually, we need half as much, we realize. We kind of overshot. But it's a pretty straightforward process. Fortunately, the hard part is the people. It's always the people, whether it's a project or a program or a special event or incident response. Getting people to not stay in their lane because they don't want to work with someone else, or not be egotistical because they have a certain rank, or they think, well, I'm a cool tactical street guy. Who are you from the office, right? Telling me what to do or from this other thing. That's where you see problems. Google any bad incident that has happened where there's multiple agencies, and you will see that. Didn't plan together ahead of time, never trained together, aren't familiar with using the incident command system a lot. In almost all of them. I can't imagine that won't be a factor. Even even hearing the projection that our plan is real strong for Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, you can see the divide between the Secret Service and police and public safety, right? And sometimes you can't tell a federal agency they have to be part of your plan. The irony in that situation is a lot of these standards came from the federal level, but that's bureaucracy. That's, agencies. So I hope this gave you all some insight into the planning that goes on behind events like this, that generally it's people getting together and figuring out how many people and stuff we need. We agree on our objectives. We approve it together. So the approval of this plan happened from multiple people at high level, I'll share. So if you are in a position to influence your agency and you're still in 2024, a lot of this stuff kicked up after 9/11 because the response after 9/11 was huge, right? And a lot of agencies weren't used to it. So this all hazard incident management came from the wildfire service that's used to doing big things over thousands of acres. But that was a long time ago. It was 23 years ago. And we still have agencies not working together and full of ego and in their silo. Same thing happened when we had a pandemic. So let's not do this anymore. Doesn't make any sense. It's super easy to work together, super easy, and it's so much better. Everybody gets food on time. You get copies made for you. Like, there are super practical reasons to work with other people. So pay attention to the news. Keep listening for that. Well, we're in charge of this part, not that part. I can't talk about this. Well, cool. So I can clearly tell that you have division, but is there division among your people? Hopefully not. Thank you all for hitting play on this. I hope it was helpful. It was insightful, and that you realize, like we see, hope is never a plan. Hope is an inspiration. We hope it's a nice day and there's weather. We hope nothing bad happens, but we have planned for it if it does. Thank you for hit play on the Hope Is Not a Plan podcast. I appreciate your time. Remember, please visit hopeisnotaplan.org. Hit the YouTube channel up. Creep it on that 450,000 views. Sharing fitness 15 seconds at a time. Hope Is Not a Plan Facebook, at Hope Is Not a Plan, Twitter, Instagram. I am Kevin Pinnell, and I thank you. Stay safe. Work a process together, and Godspeed.